Welcome to InfoStream, your daily current. Unsure what to listen to? Turn to us for today's headlines. Stay informed. House to vote on Epstein file release. Significant revelations surrounding Jeffrey Epstein are expected to be revealed. Trump sues BBC over Panorama. Donald Trump is pursuing a major legal action against the BBC. China-Japan tensions rise over Taiwan. Escalating disputes threaten regional stability. UK earnings analyzed post-2008. Economic trends since 2008 are under scrutiny. Russia attacks intensify in Ukraine. Deadly strikes continue across key Ukrainian regions. Iran seizes tanker, cools regional conflict. The seizure raises tensions in the Strait of Hormuz. Settler violence exposes Israeli divisions. Attacks in the West Bank highlight deep societal divisions. UN investigates mass killings in Sudan. An investigation into alleged killings is underway. U.S. charm offensive leads to Swiss tariff cuts. A diplomatic effort resulted in reduced Swiss tariffs. BHP faces legal consequences in Brazil. A legal battle stemming from a disaster has been initiated. Trump's boat incident sparks public outrage. Legal concerns arise from the incident involving Trump's vessel. U.S. faces opposition on nuclear testing. The administration is encountering resistance regarding restarting nuclear testing. Explosion in Kashmir police station causes fatalities. A tragic event has resulted in casualties. Pakistan Army chief receives enhanced powers and immunity. The Chief of Army Staff has been granted significant privileges. Somalia e-visa breach raises international concerns. A security breach in Somalia's e-visa system is a matter of concern. House poised to vote on full Epstein file release amidst Trump-Epstein revelations. The House of Representatives is scheduled to vote next week on legislation mandating the full release of additional documents related to Jeffrey Epstein's activities, fueled by newly disclosed emails revealing a deeply negative and increasingly paranoid assessment of former President Donald Trump by Epstein. These emails, unearthed from Epstein's estate, paint a stark contrast to Trump's earlier claims of expelling Epstein from Mar-a-Lago due to poaching club employees. The released emails detail Epstein's belief that Trump was crazy, exhibiting early dementia, and bordering on insane. He described Trump as a mob boss and expressed concern about his mental state, stating, "I feels alone," and is nuts. These sentiments, emerging after years of close association, have intensified scrutiny of Trump's connections to Epstein and his knowledge of Epstein's activities. The vote on the full file release follows a preliminary release of documents, but the new emails significantly expand the scope of the investigation. Epstein's assessments of Trump extend beyond mere concern, suggesting a profound distrust and a belief that Trump was actively manipulating those around him. He characterized Trump as evil beyond belief, highlighting a significant shift in his perception of the former president. Furthermore, Epstein's emails reveal a detailed understanding of Trump's legal strategy, particularly concerning Michael Cohen, Trump's longtime fixer. Epstein's observation, "I know how dirty Donald is," adds another layer of complexity to the investigation. The House vote is expected to be contentious, with Republicans continuing to defend Trump's actions and Democrats advocating for transparency. The legislation, if passed, would require Senate approval and the president's signature, potentially unlocking further revelations about Epstein's network and Trump's involvement. The timing of the vote coincides with ongoing debates about the release of other classified documents related to the Epstein investigation, suggesting a sustained effort to uncover the full extent of the scandal. The vote's outcome will likely shape the narrative surrounding the Epstein case and its implications for the former president. Donald Trump announces 1BN5BN lawsuit against BBC over Panorama edit. Donald Trump has announced his intention to sue the BBC for at least $1 billion and potentially up to $5 billion following a controversial edit of a 2021 speech. This action stems from a BBC Panorama documentary that presented a combined clip from different points in Trump's address, leading him to believe the edit distorted his intended message. The BBC initially apologized for the edit, stating it was unintentional and created a misleading impression, but refused to offer financial compensation. Trump's legal threat follows a series of escalating events, including a BBC apology, the resignations of Director General Tim Davie and Newsnight editor Deborah Turnus, and the revelation of a similar edited clip broadcast in 2022. Legal teams have outlined 5 key arguments defending the BBC, asserting that the documentary was not distributed on U.S. channels, that no harm was caused by the edit, that the clip was not designed to mislead, that it was part of a longer speech, and that opinions on matters of public concern are protected under defamation laws. The BBC's stance is that it has no basis for a defamation claim, given the documentary's limited distribution and the fact that Trump was subsequently re-elected. The potential legal battle is considered a nightmare situation for the public broadcaster, potentially straining its resources and diverting attention from crucial charter renewal negotiations. The BBC believes that settling with Trump would be a waste of license fee money. Legal experts suggest that if Trump proceeds with the lawsuit, the BBC will need to secure top-tier Florida lawyers to defend itself. The cost of litigation is a significant concern, particularly given the BBC's current focus on the charter renewal process. The situation highlights a broader challenge for institutions, particularly the BBC, in an era of declining public trust and increased scrutiny. The legal proceedings are expected to be protracted and costly, with potential long-term implications for the BBC's reputation and operations. The BBC's decision to stand firm against a settlement underscores its commitment to journalistic integrity and its belief in the protection of freedom of expression, even in the face of a powerful and determined adversary. Escalating tensions. China and Japan clash over Taiwan. The relationship between China and Japan is rapidly deteriorating following Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi's assertive comments regarding a potential Taiwanese survival-threatening situation, triggering a Japanese military response to a Chinese attack. This sparked a furious backlash from Beijing, leading to diplomatic protests, economic repercussions, and a travel advisory urging Chinese citizens to avoid Japan. The initial catalyst was Takaichi's response to a parliamentary question, where she stated that a Chinese attack on Taiwan would constitute a situation threatening Japan's survival, prompting a forceful condemnation from China's foreign ministry. This was further inflamed by a provocative social media post from Chinese Consul General Xu Jian, suggesting a head-on blow to Japan. Beijing responded with diplomatic protests, summoning Japan's ambassador and demanding a retraction of Takaichi's remarks, accusing them of seriously damaging China-Japan relations. China's Vice Foreign Minister Sun Weidong reiterated the demand, warning of consequences for Japan. The PLA Daily and affiliated X accounts published scathing commentaries threatening military action. Japan, in turn, formally protested Xu Jian's remarks, demanding appropriate action. Despite the escalating rhetoric, Takaichi defended her comments as reflecting a hypothetical scenario and announced she would refrain from similar discussions in Parliament. The historical context of strained relations, rooted in 19th-century conflicts and Japan's wartime aggression, continues to fuel tensions. The travel advisory issued by China reflects a significant economic impact, as nearly 7.5 million Chinese tourists visited Japan in the first 9 months of 2023. The situation underscores the delicate balance between Japan's economic ties with China and its security concerns, particularly regarding Washington's strategic ambiguity policy. The incident highlights the ongoing strategic competition in the Indo-Pacific region and the potential for miscalculation. Both countries' leaders have a history of hawkish stances on Taiwan, and the current exchange is likely to further complicate regional security dynamics. The ongoing dispute underscores the sensitivity surrounding Taiwan's status and Beijing's unwavering commitment to its claims. Pay recovery debate analysis of UK earnings since 2008. Recent discussions surrounding pay recovery in the United Kingdom have centered on analyzing wage trends since 2008, with significant discrepancies emerging depending on the inflation measure employed in sector affiliation. The British Medical Association, BMA, through its chair Dr. Tom Dolphin, asserts that for the majority of the UK economy, wages have rebounded to levels comparable with those seen in 2008. However, a deeper examination reveals a more nuanced picture. The BMA primarily utilizes the Retail Prices Index, RPI, to assess wage growth. When adjusted for RPI, average earnings have decreased by 11% since 2008, indicating a failure to fully recover to pre-financial crisis levels. Conversely, utilizing the Consumer Prices Index, CPI, a more commonly accepted inflation measure, reveals a different outcome. Overall, CPI-adjusted pay has increased by 2% since 2008. This variation is further compounded by sector differences. In the private sector, CPI-adjusted pay has risen by 3% since 2008, reflecting stronger growth in the business environment. In stark contrast, the public sector has experienced a decline in CPI-adjusted pay, with increases registering at only 1%. These figures highlight the unequal distribution of wage growth across the UK economy, with the private sector demonstrating greater gains than the public sector. The BMA's perspective is based on RPI, while the broader CPI data presents a slightly more optimistic view of wage recovery, although this is not consistently observed across all sectors. The debate underscores the complexities of measuring economic recovery and the significant disparities within the UK workforce. Deadly Russian strikes intensify across Kyiv and southern Ukraine. A devastating wave of Russian attacks intensified across Ukraine, resulting in multiple casualties and widespread damage. A Russian drone struck a block of flats in the Lasovy area of eastern Kyiv, killing 6 people and injuring dozens more. with emergency services reporting the drone penetrating the building and causing a catastrophic collapse of multiple floors. Witnesses described the horrific scene, noting the discovery of 4 bodies near their homes. Simultaneously, Ukraine launched a counteroffensive, deploying long-range Long Neptune cruise missiles targeting Russian infrastructure. Further south, a drone attack resulted in the deaths of at least 2 individuals at a market in Chornomorsk. Meanwhile, a significant strike on Russia's largest oil export terminal in Novorossiysk, on the Black Sea coast, caused a fire at the Sheskharas oil refinery and impacted a block of flats and a ship. Governor Veniamin Kondryev reported injuries to 3 crew members and another man, leading to the suspension of oil exports. The attacks on Kyiv were extensive, with reports of drones and missiles targeting high-rise buildings across virtually every district. Ukrainian authorities issued warnings urging residents to take shelter as air defenses worked to intercept the incoming threats. Over 40 people were rescued, including 14 from a residential building fire. 1 individual sustained critical injuries. The assault significantly impacted Kyiv's energy infrastructure, causing disruptions to heating in some buildings. Ukrainian MP Lisa Yasko described the intensity of the attacks, noting the constant shaking and the fear felt by residents. Emergency services were deployed to manage multiple fires and provide medical assistance. The situation remains highly volatile, with continued attacks and a strong Ukrainian response. The attacks caused significant damage to buildings, including a hospital, school, and administrative buildings. The BBC reported that the drone had pierced the entire block of flats before exploding. Iranian seizure of tanker in Strait of Hormuz escalates regional tensions. Recent events in the Persian Gulf have intensified regional tensions, following Iran's confirmation of seizing a tanker, the Talara, in the strategically vital Strait of Hormuz. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, stated the vessel was in violation of maritime laws, though specific details regarding the alleged infraction remain undisclosed. Reports indicate the tanker, registered under the flag of the Marshall Islands, was transporting high-sulfur gas oil as it traveled from the United Arab Emirates, UAE, to Singapore. The incident unfolded when the Talara, departing from Ajman in the UAE and proceeding through the Strait of Hormuz, was approached by 3 small boats, prompting a sudden course deviation. Maritime security company Ambre detailed the event, highlighting the vessel's abrupt change in direction. The U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet confirmed active monitoring of the situation, asserting commercial vessels' right to unimpeded navigation on the high seas. Following the seizure, the ship's management company reported losing contact with the crew, located approximately 20 nautical miles off the coast of Sharjah's Corfacan port. The UK's Maritime Trade Operations Centre advised vessels to transit with caution and report any suspicious activity. This latest action underscores Iran's history of maritime violations, often cited as retaliation for Western sanctions and other actions against the country. The incident's timing is particularly concerning given the ongoing regional instability, notably the 12-day conflict with Israel in June, during which Israel and the United States conducted bombing campaigns targeting Iran's nuclear facilities. Iran retaliated with strikes against Israel. Furthermore, the seizure follows April's incident, where the IRGC seized a commercial ship with links to Israel, triggered by a deadly attack on Iran's consulate in Syria, also attributed to Israel. The continued actions highlight Iran's assertive stance and its willingness to challenge international maritime traffic, further complicating the geopolitical landscape of the Persian Gulf. Record settler attacks in West Bank expose deep divisions within Israel. Recent weeks have witnessed a dramatic escalation of violence in the West Bank, primarily perpetrated by Israeli settlers, triggering significant internal divisions within Israel and raising serious concerns about the future of the occupied territory. The attacks, characterized by vandalism, arson, and physical assaults against Palestinians, have reached unprecedented levels, documented by the UN Office for Humanitarian Affairs, which reports over 260 settler attacks, resulting in Palestinian casualties and property damage in October alone, the highest monthly count since 2006. This surge in violence has prompted strong condemnation from Israeli military leaders, including Chief of Staff Avi Bluth, who labeled the actions unacceptable and extremely serious. The attacks have targeted religious sites, such as the Hamada Mosque, where settlers scrawled messages of defiance, and civilian infrastructure, including industrial estates and Bedouin buildings. Several individuals, including journalists Ranin Sawafta and Hamad al-Jagob Abu Rabia, have been injured during these assaults, highlighting the direct threat faced by those reporting on the conflict. Furthermore, 55-year-old Afaf Abu Alia was brutally beaten with a club, and others have been subjected to near-daily violence. The government's response has been controversial, with National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir distributing over 100,000 weapons to civilian security squads operating in West Bank settlements and urging formal annexation of the territory. The Defense Minister Israel Katz recently banned administrative detention for Jewish settlers, a policy now being reconsidered due to the escalating violence. This has fueled anxieties about a lack of accountability and the potential for further unrest. The situation is further complicated by allegations of abuse within Israeli security forces, highlighted by leaked video footage concerning the treatment of Palestinian detainees. These events have exposed deep divisions within the Israeli military and political landscape. While some leaders, like Chief of Staff Avi Bluth, are taking a firm stance, others, such as settler manager Amichai Luria, dismiss the attacks as minor and accuse Palestinians of harboring anti-Israel sentiments. Despite the growing unrest, the legal status of Israeli settlements remains disputed under international law, and the conflict continues to deepen rifts within Israel and threaten regional stability. UN launches mass killings investigation amid Sudan conflict. A fresh, independent investigation into mass killings in El Fasher, Sudan, has been authorized by the UN Human Rights Council, marking a significant international response to the ongoing conflict. The investigation's mandate is to identify those responsible for the atrocities, with findings potentially shared with the International Criminal Court. The UN Human Rights Chief, Volker Turk, expressed deep concern, stating that the international community's response has been inadequate, citing too much pretense and performance and too little action. Satellite imagery reveals widespread devastation, with piles of bodies and blood-stained earth visible from space. The conflict, now in its second year, has resulted in over 150,000 deaths and the displacement of approximately 12 million people. The RSF, led by General Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo, captured El Fasher last month following an 18-month siege, and has been accused of targeting non-Arab groups and engaging in widespread atrocities. The investigation seeks to hold perpetrators accountable, acknowledging the scale of suffering, which surpasses even the Janjaweed militia's genocide of 20 years prior. The United States, through Secretary of State Marco Rubio, has strongly condemned the supply of weapons to the RSF, forming part of the Quad coalition alongside the UAE, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia. The Quad recently proposed a 3-month humanitarian truce followed by a permanent ceasefire and a 9-month transition to civilian rule. However, the UAE, along with the RSF and Sudanese army, deny accusations of supporting the warring factions. Investigations reveal a complex network of arms smuggling, with evidence indicating weapons from Serbia, Russia, China, Turkey, Yemen, and the UAE are being utilized in the conflict. The UAE is particularly implicated in providing arms and facilitating illicit gold sales to the RSF. Despite a long-standing UN arms embargo on Darfur, the embargo has not been extended to the rest of the country. The UK government has also faced scrutiny over potential arms shipments to the RSF, prompting assurances of strict controls on arms exports. The conflict continues with no let-up in fighting, and the situation remains dire with a small fraction of the population able to flee El Fasher. The international community's response is being criticized for lacking urgency and effectiveness. Swiss tariffs set to decline following U.S. charm offensive. Following months of unsuccessful diplomatic efforts, the United States and Switzerland are nearing an agreement to significantly reduce tariffs imposed by President Donald Trump on Swiss exports. Intense negotiations, spurred by a charm offensive involving gifts and private meetings, have yielded promising results. Swiss officials, led by Economics Minister Guy Parmelin, engaged in very positive talks with U.S. officials, acknowledging Switzerland's trade deficit and expressing a willingness to address it. Initially, attempts by Swiss President Karen Keller-Sutter to persuade Trump to reconsider the tariffs proved futile. However, a private business initiative last week dramatically shifted the dynamic. Trump, recognizing the efforts, stated he was working on a little bit lower reduction, though he did not specify a precise figure. Swiss industry leaders played a crucial role, presenting Trump with gifts, including a Rolex gold watch and a specially engraved gold bar from MKS, a Swiss gold refining company. This strategy, a common practice in Washington, was instrumental in gaining the president's attention. Trump's subsequent questioning about the Rolex's presence at the U.S. Open and the meetings with Dufour and other business leaders signaled a softening stance. A White House official confirmed Trump received the Rolex Datejust desk clock, a collector's item valued at tens of thousands of dollars, alongside the gold bar. These gifts, like countless others received by the president, are ultimately transferred to the National Archives and eventually to a presidential library. The negotiations represent a significant step toward alleviating the economic hardship faced by Swiss industries, particularly those dealing in luxury goods, gold, and commodities, which have experienced a 14.2% decline in tech exports to the U.S. since the tariff hikes in August. While details of the final agreement remain undisclosed, the U.S. president's stated intention to help Switzerland suggests a considerable tariff reduction is imminent, marking a notable shift in the U.S.-Swiss trade relationship. BHP found liable in Brazil disaster sparks ongoing legal battles. A London High Court ruling has established BHP's liability for the 2015 dam collapse in Mariana, Brazil, widely considered the nation's worst environmental disaster. The collapse, involving a joint venture between BHP and Vale, resulted in 19 deaths, widespread environmental contamination, and the destruction of hundreds of homes. The civil lawsuit, representing over 600,000 individuals, including local governments and businesses, was initially valued at up to $36 billion. Despite BHP's initial denial of responsibility and claims of duplicated legal proceedings, the court determined that continuing to raise the dam's height, while unsafe, was the direct and immediate cause of the disaster, upholding Brazilian law. BHP has already paid compensation to approximately 240,000 claimants through a settlement in Brazil, a move contested by the claimants' legal team, Poised, who alleged the company's pressured settlements at undervalued amounts. The firm estimates lost fees at $100 billion and highlights a $30.3 billion compensation agreement signed in Brazil. Ongoing disputes center around the fairness of settlements and the potential for further claims. The Renova Foundation, established by BHP and Vale, has provided cash compensation and facilitated the relocation of Novo Bento residents to a new city, disbursing billions in repair and compensation actions. However, the legal battle continues, with Poised accusing BHP of suppressing information and hindering the pursuit of full compensation. The firm contends that the Brazilian settlement agreement prevents claimants from discussing it with them or paying legal fees. The case highlights the complex jurisdictional issues and the protracted nature of seeking redress for such a devastating environmental catastrophe. While BHP has made significant financial contributions through the Renova Foundation, the legal disputes demonstrate the ongoing challenges in securing adequate compensation for those affected and the continued scrutiny of corporate responsibility in environmental disasters. The situation underscores the need for robust regulatory oversight and effective legal mechanisms to ensure accountability and justice in similar circumstances. Trump's boat strikes spark public opposition, raise legal concerns. The United States has been conducting a sustained military campaign, dubbed Operation Southern Spear, involving air and naval strikes against suspected drug vessels in the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific, primarily targeting Venezuela and Colombia. These strikes, initiated by the Trump administration, aim to disrupt the flow of narcotics to the U.S., with Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth characterizing them as a fight against narco-terrorists. 21 vessels have been hit in 20 separate strikes between September 2nd and November 13th, resulting in at least 80 deaths, though many of the deceased were identified as low-level traffickers or amateur criminals rather than hardened narco-terrorists. The administration's justification for these actions centers on a war-like approach, arguing it allows the U.S. to exercise powers typically reserved for wartime, despite lacking congressional authorization. This has fueled considerable legal scrutiny and public opposition. A recent Reuters Ipsos poll revealed a significant 51% disapproval of the strikes, with 29% supporting them. Growing concerns stem from the lack of due process and transparency surrounding the operations. Lawmakers, including Libertarian Republican Senator Rand Paul and Alaskan Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski, have called for greater briefings from the administration, which has been reluctant to provide a detailed legal justification. Furthermore, reports emerged suggesting the victims were frequently small-time criminals, undermining the administration's narrative. This revelation, coupled with allegations of torture and abuse within the El Salvador prison where some migrants were sent, has intensified public skepticism. Multiple polls demonstrate a strong American preference for upholding due process, even for non-citizens. A May Public Religion Research Institute poll showed 61% opposition to deporting undocumented migrants to El Salvador without judicial review, while a June Vanderbilt University poll revealed a drop in support from 51% to 39% when incorporating the judicial element. These findings highlight a growing disconnect between the administration's approach and public sentiment, suggesting a potential political challenge for President Trump. The situation remains fluid, with ongoing legal challenges and increasing scrutiny of the administration's actions. Trump administration faces pushback on nuclear testing restart. The Trump administration is encountering significant resistance from within its own Department of Energy and National Nuclear Security Administration, An essay regarding President Trump's suggestion to resume testing of the nation's nuclear weapons. Sources indicate that Energy Secretary Chris Wright, NNSA leader Brandon M. Williams, and related officials are actively working to dissuade the White House from pursuing explosive nuclear tests. The initial impetus for this pushback stemmed from Trump's October social media post instructing the Department of Defense and Energy to test our nuclear weapons on an equal basis with other countries, following Russia's boasting about a Poseidon nuclear-powered torpedo and North Korea's continued testing activities. Despite the president's directive, NSA officials are focused on existing agency activities, including supercomputer bomb simulations and test flights of non-explosive warheads, to maintain the nuclear stockpile. A detailed memo prepared for Wright and Williams outlines the agency's approach and a 36-month timeline for underground testing, potentially extending longer due to possible legal challenges. The proposed testing would primarily occur in Nevada, a site already burdened with legacy cleanup issues and facing resistance from state governments. The White House, led by Trump, has been intentionally vague about the specific intent of the testing, fueling confusion within the administration. Senior officials acknowledged the president's fixation on the issue during his Asian trip. The potential resumption of testing raises concerns about geopolitical tensions, as China and Russia have largely refrained from conducting nuclear tests in recent decades. Furthermore, the administration's desire to test nuclear weapons would likely be met with legal challenges and significant environmental concerns. The agency possesses substantial data from Cold War-era testing, diminishing the need for new explosive tests. The administration's push for testing could also provide a justification for China to resume its own testing activities, further destabilizing the global nuclear landscape. The situation highlights a fundamental disagreement between the executive branch and key elements within the national security apparatus regarding the optimal approach to nuclear weapons policy. The administration's approach is being described as primarily politically motivated, seeking to send a signal rather than gather scientifically valuable data. Kashmir police station explosion results in fatal casualties. A devastating accidental explosion at a police station in Indian-administered Kashmir has resulted in 9 fatalities and 32 injuries, according to official reports. The incident occurred on Friday evening at the Naugam police station, a location central to law enforcement operations within the region. The explosion involved a stockpile of confiscated explosives that had been previously seized by authorities. These explosives originated from Faridabad, a city in the northern state of Haryana, and were being transported to the Kashmir police station for forensic analysis. The event follows a recent and separate terror incident in Delhi, where a car bomb attack caused multiple casualties. The Indian government has classified this Delhi incident as a terror incident, highlighting the ongoing security concerns within the nation. Investigations into the Kashmir explosion are currently underway, focusing on the circumstances surrounding the detonation of the seized explosives. Police Director General Nalin Prabhat described the event as a very unfortunate mishap, emphasizing the lack of intentionality behind the blast. He confirmed that the explosives were being transported for forensic examination when the detonation occurred at approximately 2320 local time, 1750 GMT. The precise cause of the detonation is still under scrutiny, but authorities are examining potential factors related to handling procedures and the condition of the seized materials. The incident underscores the challenges faced by law enforcement agencies in managing and securing potentially dangerous materials. The focus remains on determining the exact sequence of events and preventing similar occurrences in the future. The investigation is expected to thoroughly examine protocols related to the storage, transportation, and handling of confiscated explosives within the region. Pakistan's army chief granted enhanced powers and immunity. Recent legislative changes in Pakistan have significantly expanded the authority of the country's army chief, Field Marshal Asa Munir, sparking considerable debate regarding the nation's political landscape. A 27th constitutional amendment, signed into law, grants Munir oversight of the Navy and Air Force, alongside permanent immunity from arrest and prosecution. This move, supported by the government as part of a defense reform agenda, aims to modernize Pakistan's military capabilities. However, critics argue it represents a dangerous shift towards autocratic rule, exacerbating the existing civil-military imbalance. The amendment solidifies Munir's position, ensuring his field marshal title and uniform remain in effect for life, with ongoing responsibilities and duties determined by the President and Prime Minister. This effectively guarantees a prominent role for Munir in public life until his death. Supporters maintain the changes clarify the military command structure and address the need for a modernized defense force. A second, equally contentious alteration involves the judicial system. A new federal constitutional court, EFCC, will be established, with its chief justice and judges appointed by the president. This restructuring fundamentally alters the right to a fair trial, raising concerns about judicial independence. Critics fear the executive's influence will dominate constitutional benches, diminishing the ability of litigants to secure impartial judgments. The situation is viewed as a significant escalation of military influence, moving beyond a hybrid system to a post-hybrid one, according to Michael Kugelman. Concerns are voiced that the judiciary will lack any independent space to operate. Journalist Muniz Jahangir highlights the imbalance, stating that power has tilted decisively towards the military. Arifa Noor echoes this sentiment, asserting that the judiciary is now subservient to the executive. The changes represent a critical juncture in Pakistan's political history, with profound implications for the country's future. Somalia e-visa breach sparks international concern. A significant data breach affecting Somalia's electronic visa system has prompted warnings from the United States and the United Kingdom, potentially impacting the personal information of over 35,000 applicants. The breach, allegedly perpetrated by unidentified hackers, has exposed sensitive data including names, photographs, birth dates, marital statuses, addresses, and email contacts. The U.S. Embassy's statement confirmed receiving credible reports of the hack targeting the Somali government's e-visa platform. Somalia's government has shifted its visa service to ETAS.gov, so without explanation, fueling concerns about the security of the system. While the U.S. Embassy acknowledges it cannot confirm individual data exposure, it advises travelers to carefully consider the risks associated with applying for Somali visas. The situation is further complicated by ongoing tensions between Somalia and Somaliland, a self-declared republic. Somaliland's President Abdirahman Iro has ordered airlines to obtain clearance from Hargeisa before entering Somaliland's airspace, leading to airlines refusing to board passengers without Somalia's e-visa approval. This has resulted in stranded travelers at airports. Somaliland's Civil Aviation Minister, Fuad Ahmed Nuux, announced that directives regarding airline compliance came into effect on November 10th, with airlines facing potential rerouting. Footage released by Somaliland's Aviation Ministry shows local air traffic controllers issuing instructions to international pilots, asserting Somaliland's autonomy. However, the Somalia Civil Aviation Authority maintains control over the Mogadishu Flight Information Region, FIR, ordering all aircraft to disregard instructions from Hargeisa. This dispute has raised concerns about aviation safety and potential legal consequences. The standoff has intensified, with Somaliland's Foreign Minister Abdurrahman Dahirdadan repeatedly asserting that travelers to Somaliland will obtain visas on arrival, citing the system's unreliability and potential for data compromise. The breach highlights vulnerabilities within Somalia's digital infrastructure and exacerbates existing political divisions, impacting travel and aviation security within the region.